Hello, Starseeds. Hello to my galactic family, to my galactic brothers and sisters. So, what I want to discuss tonight is everyone has this idea of what is my purpose? What am I going to do next? The most important thing to understand that is central to your ascension is that when you ask questions like this, you are still operating within a linear construct of reality. You're still deriving energies from the artificial grid system or from the inverted matrix. You see, that inverted matrix is composed of limiting beliefs, thoughts, perceptions that were once rooted in a safety mechanism or a coping mechanism or a survival mechanism that link to societal pressures of having to produce a lot and having to find the solution outside of ourselves. This will never enable you to transition yourself into 5D New Earth reality. It's very much like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. And that's the visual I always receive when I'm thinking or pondering on this New Earth reality. You cannot fit old energy in a new energy. You just cannot. So every rule, every law of the land that pertain to the old Earth reality will not be applicable to this new Earth reality. That's why so many people who are on diets, they're finding that that's not working anymore because they worked within an old energy system. And the same goes for your manifestation. Whenever you ask questions like, what am I to do next? Am I ever going to realize my dream? You're either entirely externally focused or you are partially externally focused. If you are entirely externally focused, you are still operating within a third dimensional box. If you are partially externally focused, then you are operating within a fourth dimensional box. None of those are going to be compatible with the new 5D Earth reality. The square peg cannot fit in the round hole. New Earth is round. You're not thinking linearly. You're thinking in a circular way. Time is a spiral. And the square peg holds different beliefs, and as much as you try to jam it in there or force fit it into the New Earth reality, it's simply not going to be successful. Do you know why we have to go through so many dark nights of the soul? Because we have to suspend our beliefs of who we once were, who we thought we were going to be in this world. And purging those timelines, purging that identity, purging that persona is very, very painful. Because you're having to discard all those energies that you thought you were. So remember something. As you navigate your ascension, it is vital that you understand that these old techniques, these old approaches, these old tactics, as much as you try to make them work, they will not work. It's like trying to go into the external world and manifest from what's already taken form. What the Pleiadians and what the Nine are always showing me is that this new Earth reality is all about creating from within. Not being focused from without, because that's still lack. Without is lack, it's external. And I often ask the Nine, how did I manage to become successful at what I do? And they always say, because you were willing to give everything up. Everything that you knew deep down wasn't really real. It was artificial. Like this idea that we have to go chase a dream. This idea that we have to go hustle and network I never gelled with those. I never felt like I was wired in that way. I never did. And so, as the defiant being that I am, I chose to go and move in my own lane. I didn't know that it would end up and result in success. I had no idea. A lot of people made fun of me. They were like, "You're a bum, you're not doing anything with your life." However, when you start to learn to work with your energy, with the magic of your mind, and you really start to come to the conscious realization that you have magic flowing in these veins, you have so much life force and so much power coursing through your body, then you know that you're onto something. You're like that mad scientist who's in his lab because you're figuring out all these different formulas and you're finding all these keys to unlock these doorways of the universe. And every doorway leads to a new truth. I always got this visual that my guides were handing me a new key every time I was willing to surrender my ego. Because what the inner critic, what the ego is going to do, is it's going to coerce you into playing that game of the rat race, which so many people are a part of. I see it all the time, even in the spiritual community. Oh, come on, Phil, write a book, write a book. You're not legitimate if you don't. Da, da, da. All of that stuff to me is being geared towards the illusion. People who are still operating within the lower echelon of the 4D or higher echelon of the 3D or higher echelon of the 4D. It is important that we start to operate from a place of everything that I want resides within me. Where you get so excited at the prospect of creating magic from within that you no longer concern yourself with what's going to happen and what's going to take place in your external world. When you submit to your universe and you surrender all those lower aspects of the self that are plugged into the old matrix, those aspects of yourself that are putting pressure on you to perform, to produce, you have to understand that all of these aspects are yours, but they're not really yours. They're yours because you've adopted them as your own. And you might have had a lifetime or a few lifetimes where you believed them to such a degree where you became entrapped by them. You became a slave to them. You became encapsulated in this very restricted way of existing with these self-limiting beliefs. So these aspects are yours from one viewpoint, and from a collective viewpoint, they belong to the collective unconscious. They are linked together with this artificial or inverted matrix system of fear, of having to perform, of doing all of these things, because if we don't do them, we're going to be homeless. Does that sound like source to you? Does that sound like the heart of the universe, that you would be homeless? Or that you're going to fail in life if you don't meet these criteria? No. Anytime you have one of those degrading thoughts, anytime you have an intrusive thought that is trying to coerce you into producing when you really just want to lay there on your couch, do not take the bait. Because all you're doing is you're feeding and you're keeping alive that old energy system, that artificial grid system. Or you can just say it's the older planetary body. It's the old Earth. We have to be willing to suspend all of these beliefs Everything that does not seem natural to you, like forcing yourself to work when you don't want to work, like making it happen because you're not producing enough. Every time you suspend those, know that you are vibrating yourself into a higher reality. You are ridding yourself, you are expelling that thick material, which are those dense energies in your system. And when you do this, it's going to sting. It has to. It's like having a splinter in your feet or in your hand, and you're having to pluck it out. Doesn't feel so good, does it? But you feel relief when you know that that's not in your body anymore, because it's kind of disturbing to think that there's something, a piece of wood or a splinter in our toe. Yeah, it's disturbing to think of that. The reason why we have to unpeel our banana, the reason why we have to peel back all these layers of the onion, is so that we can become more subtle, so that our energy can rise into those subtle realms. Most people who are operating within the third dimensional box will eventually get to a point where they'll have to do it. But right now, most people still have their tail between their legs, and they're too afraid to be the one to discard those old beliefs, because they have no clue. They have no clue that those thoughts are actually entities or thought forms or spirits that are roaming in the collective unconscious to grab a hold of them and to build their own empire through your unconscious. You know, these entities are very masterful at saying to you, you're being lazy. Go work. Now, if you're someone who's spiritually asleep, I call them spiritual zombies, and I don't mean that meanly, okay? If you're someone who's spiritually asleep, you receive that thought, and you're going to go ahead and act on it without having the wherewithal that a spirit just whispered in your ear and influenced you. And when you step out of your house that day and you go produce within that old construct of reality, whose empire are you building? Are you building your own? Or are you building those entities' empire? And once they get enough energy and they grow like a fungus, they can actually manifest in physical form. I'm sure you guys have seen it. People who have completely given their power away, and you can actually see their eyes glaze over, or they have like a weird shape, that's entity possession. Now, if you want to be someone who is a light raiser, if you want to be someone who's star-seeded and on this mission, like the true rainbow warrior, the true indigo warrior that you are, there are things you're going to have to give up. Including these beliefs or these questions that you have that are so dualistic and so linear. When am I going to have my purpose? When is this person going to arrive? The Pleiadians make me laugh because they're always shaking their heads when someone asks me that question. I don't judge that person for asking the question because I understand where it's coming from. It's coming from a place of not knowing, of having to lean into the unknown when they don't want to do that. They're still not trusting enough. It's coming from that big question mark that's looming over them. It's like a big cloud that's hanging over their head. So I understand it, but the Pleiadians are always shaking their heads because what they're trying to impart to humans is this idea that we have to point ourselves back inside when we ask a question that has to do with the outside. You know, someone sent me a DM today on Instagram and said something to the effect of, hey, Phil, I follow this spiritual teacher and she's world renowned. I'm not going to share what her name is. And her messages aren't resonating with me. I just don't like her, but I wanted to know your thoughts on this. And as soon as I read the message, the Pleiadians shook their heads. And they said, come on, people. Think for yourself. You have your own intuitive engine in your body. If you don't resonate with someone's message, does it make them a false prophet? No, it just means that your smart body or your guides don't want you listening to that. Is that person helping humanity? Yes. We're all helping to some capacity. Even when we're being negative with people, we're giving them a chance to not get reactive. So everyone is helping, depending on your perception. See, I see the light and dark as equivalently important. If someone is being mean, if someone is being flippant, if someone is being insulting, yes, perhaps there's an entity working through them, or they're running a certain limiting belief, or they're still very miserable, and they're trying to unload and unpack that negativity onto me. However, I'm still being granted an opportunity in that moment to choose. Am I going to choose the red pill or the blue pill? Am I going to choose to get reactive and judge them, or to actually open up my heart and remain neutral? So to me, everyone is helping. We are all dimensional helpers. But when we read questions like, but I wanted to know what you think about her because I don't like her. All you're doing when you ask a question like that is you're asking me to side with you, which is still dualistic, when you have to know yourself. You have to start listening to your own inner guidance. We all do. If someone's energy isn't meshing with yours, step away. Don't go ask someone else's opinion what they think of them. Someone else asked me, what are your thoughts on weed? I don't have thoughts on weed. I think that when we are aligned with our soul, with the essence of our higher self, with all that we are, we will naturally gravitate to things that resonate with us. Someone may be called to smoke weed. I don't, but they may be called to. If you're asking, what are your thoughts on weed? I would probably dissuade you from smoking it, because when you're not occupying your mind, there are other beings that are occupying that space for you. And so the likelihood of you having entities attach onto you when you start smoking weed and exploring within that dimension is very high, because you're not able to think for yourself as to whether or not you should smoke weed. Do you think that I ask for permission when I have a M&M or when I have a Kit Kat or chips? No. If I say to someone, oh, do you think these are bad for me? Well, what's driving me to ask that question is probably a blind spot. And that blind spot is being occupied or resided upon by an entity. It's the unconscious. So our job here as starseeds, as galactics, as wayshowers, as rainbow warriors, as galactic shamans, is to be aware of what's driving us to ask that question in the first place. What's important is what your thoughts on weed are. Because if you're asking someone to decide for you, and then you transition someday, and you pose a question, where am I? Or if you, let's say, have a belief before you die that you're going to reincarnate or you don't want to reincarnate, well, you're still resisting the reincarnation, or you're asking something else to choose for you. Like, where should I go now? And they're like, Foop, and they send you down that slide and you're right back where you started. That's not exactly how it works. You're never forced to do anything. We choose to be here in this planet because it's like a reality show. It's so exciting, and it's like a living library where there's all this information all around us everywhere we look. And this reality is in such high demand. Everyone wants a ticket into this reality. Because once you learn how to master your mind, then it gets really fun down here. Really fun. Reality is bendable. Circumstances are changeable. Your energy is constantly modifiable. So it gets really, really fun. But we only get to experience that once you transcend those layers that are keeping you in that old system. So we have to unplug ourselves from that 3D matrix and plug back into the truth of who we are. We have to decide that we're not going to buy into these ideas that we have to work really hard in order to yield the results that society wants us to yield. We have to take all that pressure off. Because if there's pressure in the mix, then I rest assured that you're not in alignment with your higher self. The only thing that you should be feeling is pain from your dark nights of the soul. I'm just being comical, but you get the idea. I want to work today and I'm going to work really hard, or I have this idea that I should be working hard, then I'm going to take contrary action and do nothing at all. And it's going to be really painful that day because your ego is going to struggle with that decision. But as you're choosing to go that opposite direction, you're also choosing that higher timeline, that fifth dimensional reality. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process. But every time you choose to feed the higher system, that higher dimensional frequency, every time you choose that, then you're going to be dispelling energies in your system that kept you anchored in that lower vibrational timeline. And before you know it, you're going to have a successful business with, you're going to be surrounded by people that you love, that uplift you, that support you, and you won't even know how you got there. Remember, if you're posing the question, when is my purpose going to happen? What should I do next? That is still linear, because there is no next when you're speaking non-linearly. There's no next. Every single thing, every ingredient is here right now. There's no next. You're going to be so happy from within and so powerful. You're going to feel that Kundalini energy. You're going to feel that creational energy that you can play with inside of yourself, that you won't even care what's going on outside anymore. And because you don't care, all these amazing things are going to arrive unexpectedly. That is the epitome of non-attachment. Being so happy. And a lot of people have like a misconceived notion when it comes to non-attachment. Non-attachment doesn't mean that you don't care. It means that you love yourself so much so that you're no longer concerned or worried about what's going on outside of you, because you know that everything is being taken care of. Non-attachment is being so full from within, meaning there's no more vacancy in your inner hotel. You're not always trying to fill a void with something outside, which is still a third dimensional program, a fourth dimensional program. You're so full from within that you don't need anything from your external reality anymore. And because you don't need those things, they show up. Those questions that you have, they have to die off. They have to phase out. They have to be completely eradicated from your system. Completely. To the point where you don't have those questions anymore. But it's an inside job. Whenever you have one of those queries, what should I do next? Right under that question, or right in the blind spot of that question, your answer lies. Your answer lies in the blind spot of that question. And you know what the blind spot is? What's driving me to ask that question? Am I lacking something in this now moment? Can I maybe go connect with my breath and invite the frequency of that purpose into my beingness? Can I maybe go into a meditation and ask, what would it feel like to be in Bali right now? What would it feel like to be of service to humanity right now? What would it feel like to be speaking in an audience of 1 million people? Now let's extract that vibrational property and let's deposit or place it into the body. Let's integrate that energy. Oh, all of a sudden, I don't feel a need to ask the question anymore. Oh, I wonder why. Because I did internal work which filled in the grid of what I thought I was missing. Now, when you do this work, you are shifting your energetics. You are shifting the magnetic fields within you. And because source energy is always being reflected back to you in your holographic reality, which is the world that you step into and step onto every day, because that source energy is always reflecting back to you, well, it's going to have to reflect back to you all these new energetics and all these new magnetics and coordinates that you have now input into your system. You're dialing a different number. The old questions were always leading you to the same person on the other side of the line, on the other end of the line. And you never got your answer because the answer was inside in that blind spot. And now that you've dialed a new number and your energy field, your vibratory field isn't looking the same and has been rearranged, just like feng shui in your house, well, your external world is going to have to reflect that because source energy is always mirroring you. Haven't you noticed that the things that you used to draw to you don't happen anymore? They don't magnetize to your reality anymore? Why is that? Because there's nothing in your field that's needing that experience anymore. So source energy used to show up and appear in that way because you had that frequency in your system. And sometimes we need a very strong reflection, like we're creating a lot of drama and chaos, and everything around us is very loud and dramatic because we're in need of that stronger reflection so that we can make the adjustment. So what's causing you to ask the question, what's going to happen next? Oh. Could it be that there's a frequency that you're harboring in your system that still ties you or binds you to that older construct of reality. And that question keeps showing up and presenting so that you can go, oh, I'm still thinking linearly. I need to change and suspend that belief. I need to go deeper. I need to pull my invisible shovel and really dig deep till I get to the core of my soul. And the core of my soul has all the treasures that I need, all the treasures that need to be found and discovered. Remember, we are logging out of duality and we are moving into neutrality and unity and non-duality. Neutrality, unity, and non-duality. I like that. So whenever you have these different thoughts that are making you feel like you're not performing enough, ask yourself, where are you coming from? Ask the thought, where are you coming from? And it may say to you, I'm afraid. I'm afraid that I'm not going to be approved of or validated by the people around me if I don't really make it to the top, if I don't succeed, if I don't thrive. Does that sound like source to you? Or does it sound like an energy that's afraid? So if it's an energy that's afraid, could it be that it belongs to an older system? To an artificial grid system that made you believe a lie? That made you believe that you weren't good enough? That made you believe that you were not deserving of prosperity? That you were not deserving of health and wealth? So don't berate it, but identify it as such and hold a space for it to move through and out of you. We are uprooting and purging all of these systems. And that's the painful part. That's the portion of the process that isn't too comfortable. And I've learned from personal experience that you cannot bypass that. Because all of those programs were in your skin, they were in your blood, they were embedded in your teeth, they were embedded in your toes. It's your vibrational record. And that record holds so much information that sometimes is obsolete. And it's up to us, the starseeds, the wayshowers, the wisdom holders, the knowledge keepers, the guardians of New Earth, to be the forerunners of the people that will follow, just like the Pleiadians and the Arcturians were to us. They've already mapped it out for us. It's not like we're creating a new, and I think a lot of times people think we're creating a new. Yes, we are, and that would be valid from one viewpoint. But could it be that this has been done before by our predecessors, like the Pleiadians, like the Arcturians, and that they've already figured it all out? And now we are to be the anchoring units to file that information down. So are we creating reality? Yes. Could it be that reality has been already created for you? Your ultimate destiny, your ultimate fate? Absolutely. And we are opening up our hearts and our minds, because they are portals, every chakra within your body is a portal, to filter that information down, those realities that already exist. We're anchoring them. That's what we are doing. Once you stop asking these questions, that's only the beginning. This is your precursor to all that is to come. And it's a prerequisite, to be honest, to be given admission to 5D New Earth reality. It's a prerequisite. You will not manage or succeed in fitting that square peg in a round hole. It will not work. You know why it won't work? Because your higher selves and your guides and your non-physical entourage love you too much to see you slog through all that old energy. They love you too much to have it be a painful experience for you when really there's an easier way. That's why. But the ego isn't going to like it. It's going to rear its ugly head. And we have to give it love. We're not killing the ego. We're domesticating the ego. We're teaching it a new way, just like you would teach a dog a few tricks. Sit, lie down, stay. I've got you. You want this bone? I've got you. There's a treat. You just have to behave and know that you are safe within me. That there is nothing to fret. There is nothing to fear. We are here. The universe loves you way too much to have you believe a lie. It will, without a doubt, without question, make it feel like a painful journey in order to get your attention. So that you can substitute your ways of operating within this world with new ways. Substitute your 3D ways with the fifth dimensional ways. And the only painful thing about it is going to be the purging process. It's going to be the dark nights of the soul that you have. The unpeeling of the banana. That's my new thing. We're unpeeling bananas. But on the other side of that is lightness, is pleasantness, is your light body. So declutter your internal garage, decongest your vibratory field, and allow yourself to integrate your light body, because that's what we're doing. And you know what? The light body is the new earth reality. And the entire collective doesn't have to change in order for you to bend your reality. It's about shifting and altering your perceptions. It's about reframing your belief systems in order to magnetize to you source energy incarnate, which is your external experience. Not everyone needs to be on board with you. But a lot of us, a lot of you included, are already inhabitants of the 5D New Earth reality. We are already inhabitants. We are just, it's a different life. We are, I got this download months ago that 3D was an experiment and 5D was an experience. And that is exactly what we are doing. We are experiencing heaven on earth. Money is not difficult to come by. It can be as fluid as water. But we have to be willing to go inside and locate all the different red cells or all the different energetic tumors and breathe love and light into them so that they may clear, so that they may dissipate. And then your body's going to float up. And all of a sudden, you're not attracting drama anymore. And all of a sudden, you're not attracting struggle and upheavals. And you celebrate when it's time for you to experience another dark night of the soul, because you know that a spiritual promotion is on its way. So I love you guys. I cannot believe I talked for another 40 minutes. Oh my, I can probably talk for hours. I want to personally thank every single one of you for subscribing to my channel. As you can see, it's really motivating me to do more videos. I also want to thank everyone who's been donating. That helps me a lot as well, because me and Rex are building a lot. And for all your comments. You are loved, you are appreciated, you are honored for all that you are, and I will see you in another version of the Now.